Good morning, friends. Father Frank Pavone here, National Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to EndAbortion.tv and The Morning Brew. We even have our little mug here. The Morning Brew program is our morning program of prayer, pro-life updates, and I have an important message to bring to you today. If you know people in the state of Virginia or live there yourself, it's an important election coming up in a few weeks, and today's the last day for voter registration. But we'll talk more about that because that has implications for the entire country. But first, as always, let's go to my book, Pro-Life Reflections for Every Day, and let's read the quote and the reflection in prayer for today. The quote today actually comes from Living the Gospel of Life, a document of the United States Catholic Bishops, paragraph 23. They say, the failure to protect and defend life in its most vulnerable stages renders suspect any claims to the rightness of positions in other matters. Reflection. Why do the bishops say that when public servants disregard the right to life, their stand for other human rights is suspect? The reason is that the right to be safe, free, educated, and economically secure cannot be human rights if life itself isn't a human right. To make one's humanity negotiable means that all other rights that flow from humanity are negotiable also. Let us pray. Lord, make the humanity and rights of all your people secure. Amen. You can receive a copy of this book at prolifereflectionsforeveryday.com. I've signed the copy. I can personalize it for you if you request that. Well, the point here that is made leads right into our topic very well, elections and the role of pro-life in elections. I see one of you is watching from Michigan. That's an important electoral state as well. And I know that so many of you are living in Virginia or know people in Virginia. Let me know in the comments if you wish to, where in Virginia you're from. But why is this so important? You know, 2019 elections, first of all, prepare for 2020 elections. If we can get voters activated, registered, mobilized, interested, out to the polls, and also focused on the right to life as the foundational issue, just as the bishop's document explains that I just quoted from, then they will be all the more ready to do the same in 2020. So mobilizing and preparing voters in this year's election, just coming up in a few weeks, November the 5th, is a way also of preparing for next year's. Not to mention the importance in and of itself of the 2019 elections and how both sides will be able to comment upon the results of 2019 elections as a bellwether. Whether that's correct or not, it can be complicated to figure that all out. But what are the indications of what happens in the 2019 elections for what will happen in 2020? Thank you. Greetings from Virginia. I love to see that. You know, you have an important election there in Virginia. All 40 members of the Senate in Virginia and all 100 members of the House of Delegates are up for re-election. And this can mean a complete remaking of the legislature of Virginia. And the trends are very, very uncertain in the sense that right now, the legislature is divided right down the middle. Very, very slim majorities for the Republicans in both the Senate and the House of Delegates. The House of Delegates the last time around was decided by drawing a name out of a bowl. It was that close. And we don't want to repeat that, and we certainly don't want to let the Democrats have control because there's already a Democrat governor. There's already a federal court of appeals over Virginia, the Fourth Circuit, that is Democrat-dominated. And the Democrats are ready to launch some of the most radical proposals that would make Virginia look like California overnight. And this is why there is so much interest in these races. Money is being poured in from all around the country. Pro-abortion groups and Democrat operatives in other places are trying to influence Virginia to go in the pro-abortion direction. And not only on abortion, but on various other issues like the Second Amendment, the ERA, various other things. They're ready and ready to go. They just want to get their people in there and just transform Virginia into another California. Can't let it happen. And brothers and sisters, today, October 15th, is the final day for voter registration in Virginia. So if you live there, if you know people who live there, remind them to make sure today that they're registered to vote. Even if they think that they are, you can check on your voter registration status. It might need to be updated. Sometimes there are errors in the voter files. Sometimes things change without people realizing it. Now is the time to check on this. Today is the last opportunity to check on this so that come November 5th, you can vote in Virginia and vote for the right people. Now, let me focus in on something that no doubt if you follow these matters you are quite aware of. May not have thought about it for a while, but earlier this year, there was a big firestorm across the country on the abortion issue, particularly on the theme of late-term abortion, because New York had a law actually signed and enacted that removed protections, whatever remaining protections there were, for babies in the very final stages of pregnancy, the last months, weeks, and days of pregnancy. Their very last protections from them for being aborted, and even removed for protections from babies born alive after a failed abortion. That was actually enacted in New York. Why? Well, because again, in the state legislature, the Democrats took over. It was the Republicans that were holding back in New York. A long-standing effort by the pro-abortion Democrats, by the way, that means the same thing, okay, pro-abortion Democrats in New York. I know that there are exceptions to that. I've met them and work with them, but the exception proves the rule. But the point is that the state legislature getting complete dominance by Democrats, then that opened the way to them passing this extreme legislation. Now in Virginia, that almost happened. But as I say, because again of drawing a name out of a bowl, the slim Republican majority in the state legislature prevented a similar law from being enacted. Now I want to show you a video clip of a hearing. Delegate Kathy Tran, who's one of the ones who's running for re-election, joined by dozens of her fellow Democrats, wanted to pass a law similar to the abomination that got passed in New York. And so voters of Virginia and folks around the country, I want to ask you, is that what you want? Now I want you to listen carefully to this testimony. Delegate Tran is presenting her bill, and the committee in charge of having the hearing is asking about various aspects of the bill. And so you will hear in this video an exchange regarding exactly how far into the pregnancy would this new law, if it were enacted, allow a baby to be killed. Now remember, this wasn't ultimately passed. It was not passed in Virginia precisely because the Republicans take a pro-life position and didn't allow this bill to go through. But that could change on November 5th. If you're going to elect this woman that you're going to hear testifying right now, if you're going to elect her colleagues who want the law to say in Virginia that you can kill babies right up to the point of birth, well then voters, you've got that choice coming up on November the 5th. Let's listen to this exchange and then we'll talk about it a little bit more.
This bill would remove the following statutes: trap or targeted regulations of abortion providers, removing language classifying facilities that perform 5 or more first trimester abortions per month as hospitals. It would repeal Virginia's informed consent mandatory ultrasound and 24-hour delay. It would repeal the requirement that second trimester abortions be performed in a hospital licensed by the State Department of Health. It would repeal the requirement for 2 additional physicians in cases of third trimester abortions.
Delegate Tran,
Yes, sir.
how late in a pregnancy would your bill apply if a physician was simply willing to certify that the continuation of the pregnancy would impair the mental health of the woman? How late are we talking about?
Well, so the way the suggestion that we've made in the bill is to say it's in the third trimester and at the, with the certification of the physician. So
how late in the third trimester would you be able to do that?
It's very unfortunate that our physicians, witnesses, were not able to attend today to speak specifically.
No, I'm
to
talking
that.
about your bill. How late in the third trimester could a physician perform an abortion if he indicated it would impair the mental health of the woman?
Or physical health.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm talking about the mental health.
So, through the third trimester. The third trimester goes all the way up to 40 weeks.
Okay, but to the end of the third trimester.
Yep, I don't think we have a limit in the bill.
So, where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth, she has physical signs that she is about to give a birth, would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified? She's dilating.
Mr. Chairman, that would be a decision that the doctor, the physician, and the woman would make.
I understand
at
that. I'm asking
point.
if your bill allows that.
My bill would allow that, yes.
I certainly could have said a week from her due date, and that would have been the same answer, correct?
That it's allowed in the bill, yes.
Yes. And in addition to what you just represented, you do acknowledge that you substantially changed the standard by removing a couple of words here, correct?
From 2 to 1.
Substantially and irremediably.
like-
I'm sorry, line
80.
Line 80.
I'm sorry, can you just tell me, I think I'm in the right part that you're looking at as well.
Line 80.
Line 80, you are changing the standard under which the
Yeah.
judgment
Yes,
call is made.
I'm aware.
The third trimester bill.
For an abortion at any point in the third trimester. You're changing the standard.
I'm changing
for
the
that.
standard, yes.
Okay, all right. What type of mental health conditions would you anticipate would be utilized by physicians under these circumstances to determine that a child that is otherwise viable is worthy of an abortion?
Again, I'm not a physician, so I can't make those calls as to when a physician would determine that a woman's mental health where they would be able to certify an abortion at that point.
But the physician wouldn't have to have any specialized training in mental health to make that determination under your bill, right?
Under this bill, no.
Okay. All right, thank you. Delegate Tran, what are some of the conditions that a woman could be experiencing in a third trimester, late-term pregnancy for which abortion and not delivery would be the optimal result to protect either her life or health or that of the child, if that's even an interest? But what would be is there any commonly accepted medical decision to terminate the pregnancy in the late term rather than deliver the child if the mother's health or life is actually in danger?
Mr. Chairman, I am aware that there are certain medical conditions where that might be an option for the mother, and I would actually turn over to Galena from NARAL to see if she has those specific medical examples.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Sorry, I'm really short.
that's okay. I don't have a lot of specific examples because I'm not a physician. I'm an attorney. So, and we unfortunately do not have the physicians could not be here today because they are seeing patients at the moment. I know that there are certain central nervous system anomalies that cannot be determined until later stages in the pregnancy. I also know that certain anomalies like the absence of certain organs.
Okay,
and,
so you're talking about the child. Now, let me just leave that out of the equation then.
Sure.
In terms of the health or life of the mother, what conditions are there that can't be resolved by delivering the child rather than undergoing an abortion?
Again, I am not a physician. What I can point to a case that happened in Ireland. That's the first one that comes to my mind. That I'm happy to find for you and send you the article about. I can definitely send you that article, and if you'll give me some time, I can ask our physicians to provide you with a list of maladies that can lead to a woman having to have an abortion at the late stage of pregnancy. I do know that those cases exist.
But you don't know what they are.
Like I said, not a physician. I do not have those specifics about the woman. I have some specifics about the fetus. I do not have the specifics
Okay.
about the woman.
All right. And again, since you yielded, you don't have any, I'm talking to you now,
Yes.
Delegate, you don't have any specifics on that, obviously.
No, I don't. I'm
Okay.
not a physician either.
Okay, well, we're talking about a lot of physician stuff here, and nobody appears to know the answer, and the doctors aren't here. So, it would have been helpful maybe to have those questions answered.
Brothers and sisters, if you listen carefully to what we just heard, and I hope you'll listen to it again, spread it, and share it to others, you see something very clear happening here. A clear and knowing change of the law. Again, this was a bill proposed in Virginia. It would have passed if the Democrats were in the majority. They have been very, 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 very close to having a majority. Elections of that delegate that you just heard speaking and of all of those Democrats that supported this bill, these elections are happening in just a few weeks in Virginia. You got to get these people out of office. As one of you said, get this evil out of my state. Let's get this evil out of our country. You see the deliberate, knowing effort to change a law to allow abortion a week before the due date, or even as she is dilating, about to give birth. These are not our words. We didn't put those words in her mouth. She said, yes, the bill would allow that. No, there are no limits in the bill. Do we understand what's going on here? People on the other side will try to deny that this is even happening. And when and the reason that the chairman of the committee was asking about mental health is that it is very, very clear under Doe versus Bolton, the companion case of Roe versus Wade, that the evaluation of health takes into account the woman's age. So there doesn't have to be any mental illness. We're not talking about a risk of suicide. We're not talking about some kind of mental disorder that would render her incapable of being a parent. Even in that case, of course, it's never okay to kill the baby. But understand, when mental health is used, there are clear legal norms for interpreting that. And it's sufficient to say, oh, well, she's just too young. Or the family circumstances are such that it would be too difficult for her to raise the child. This is considered under the law, under the decisions and precedent of the court, to be mental health issues. Don't be fooled. And we're talking about the killing of a baby right up to the very point of birth. You want this in Virginia? Do you want this in Virginia? Do you want this anywhere in the country, anywhere on the planet? Virginia voters, you have a choice to make here. And there can be no issue more crucial than this, because if these politicians can't respect the life of a little baby about to be born, how can they respect your life? If they don't have the conscience to see that, of course, the law has to protect a baby, how are they going to have the conscience to see that the law has to protect you and your money and your family and your right to work and all your other rights, how are they going to do that? How are they going to govern? What kind of moral judgment do these people have? And the answer is they got none. There's no conscience there. There's no conscience there. Brothers and sisters, you heard them talking a lot about physicians. Oh, the physicians aren't here. Oh, I'm not a physician. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a physician either. But I talk to them all the time. And you know what? They speak English. They speak words that you and I can understand. And here's some of the words that they speak that we can understand. And I'm talking about people who have been on this program, doctors who are experts in maternal fetal medicine. Many of them are our medical advisors here at Priests for Life. I interact with them all the time. I have been to the conferences of maternal fetal medicine specialists. I've talked with fetal surgeons. I know these people. They do speak English. And here are some of the English words that they say, which, you know what? Priests and lawyers and politicians and lawmakers and all the rest of us can understand. And here's what those words are. There is never a medical necessity for an abortion. Let me repeat that. There is never a medical necessity for an abortion. Are there any words there that you don't understand? Are there any words there that require us to go to 8 years of medical school in order to understand? There is never a medical reason for an abortion. Let's put it a different way. You never have to kill the baby to help the mother. Are there any words there that you or I or a lawyer or a politician or a priest don't understand? There is never a reason to kill a baby to help the mother. Let's put it another way. Again, these doctors will say this very clearly. In English, there is no medical benefit to abortion. There is no medical benefit to abortion. Brothers and sisters, the reason that these radical, baby-killing, abortion-loving Democrats are going to keep insisting, oh, but I'm not a physician. Oh, but I'm not a doctor. Oh, our doctors aren't here. They're helping patients. Is that when you get a doctor there, they will have to say, if they're going to be honest, the same thing I just said. There is no medical benefit to an abortion. That's why they don't want to bring them in to testify. Why would you want to bring them in and ruin your case? Leave it to the imagination. You notice they couldn't mention one single medical situation that abortion fixes, because abortion doesn't fix any medical problem. It doesn't cure any disease. Of course they're going to keep the physicians away. They can't identify any medical benefit to abortion any more than you and I can, because there is none. Oh, but I'm not a physician. Oh, well, I don't know any medical conditions, or at least when they gave me the information, it wasn't in English. I couldn't read it. You know why they couldn't mention any medical case where you'd have to kill the baby? Because none exists. Sure, there's plenty of reasons why you might have to deliver a baby early, but again, in the English language, there's a big difference between deliver the baby early and kill the baby. But again, these people don't care too much about English, and they don't care too much about logic, and they don't care too much about life. And we're going to re-elect these people? Are we going to re-elect these people? Honest to God, brothers and sisters, we're at a fork in the road here. We are at a fork in the road. We cannot have public servants who do not know the difference between serving the public and killing the public. Can't do it. They don't belong in public office. Now, I want to show you another clip, because the governor of Virginia, he's not on the ballot in a few weeks in 2019. His term continues longer. But the governor was asked about this very same bill. And his remarks set off a firestorm, and then all kinds of people, again, the deluded Democrats, are trying to say he didn't say what he said. We did not make up the tape that you are about to hear and see. It's not an animation. This is not some kind of cleverly concocted robot sitting there and you know, us putting in the commands to put the words in his mouth. He said what you're about to hear. And again, it's in English, and they're not really complicated words. Listen for yourself.
No exception. There was a very contentious committee hearing yesterday when Fairfax County Delegate Kathy Tran made her case for lifting restrictions on third trimester abortions, as well as other restrictions now in place. And she was pressed by a Republican delegate about whether her bill would permit an abortion even as a woman is essentially dilating, ready to give birth. And she answered that it would permit an abortion at that stage of labor. Do you support her measure, and explain her answer?
Yeah, and I wasn't there, Julie, and I certainly can't speak for Delegate Tran, but I would tell you, first thing I would say is this is why decisions such as this should be made by providers, physicians, and the mothers and fathers that are involved. There are, when we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion. But again, we want the government not to be involved in these types of decisions. We want the decision to be made by the mothers and their providers. And this is why, Julie, that legislators, most of whom are men, by the way, shouldn't be telling a woman what she should and shouldn't be doing with her body.
And do you think multiple physicians should have to weigh in, as is currently required? She's trying to lift that requirement.
Well, I think it's always good to get a second opinion, and for at least two providers to be involved in that decision, because these decisions shouldn't be taken lightly. And so, I would certainly support more than one provider.
All right, let's go back to the phones now for the governor. We're going to talk now with Mike, who's calling in.
Wow. Another public servant who doesn't seem to know the difference between serving the public and killing the public. Notice how he uses the old, tired, distorted, deluded pro-abortion rhetoric. Oh, the government shouldn't be involved in these decisions. What decisions? Life or death decisions? The government shouldn't be involved in protecting a baby? What are you talking about? The government shouldn't be involved in these decisions. The decision about whether or not to kill a baby? It just leaves one speechless. Again, we're talking English here. You heard what he said. The government shouldn't be involved in these decisions. Government is involved because government protects life. What the government should not be involved in is negotiating that protection. What the government should not be involved in is becoming a god to decide who lives and who dies. You don't get to make that decision. Every human being has the right to life, and that's why law exists. So you can protect people from somebody else taking your life. The government shouldn't be involved in abortion, but as George is pointing out, but they don't hesitate to subsidize it, do they? This is really bad. Now, folks of Virginia, and all of you that know people in Virginia, this is the sitting governor. He's still going to be governor after the election. So if you give that man that we just heard a Senate and a House of Delegates that agree with him, That law is just going to go right through. It'll pass the very first day that they're in session. That law will go right through. You put the tool in that man's hands that the bill can come to his desk. See, the bill he was talking about can't come to his desk. Why? Because the Republicans have, albeit very slim, a majority in the Virginia Senate and the House of Delegates. But now that majority is up for grabs come November 5th. You're going to put in that man's hands the tool. You're going to put on his desk the document that then he can sign saying, okay, a discussion will ensue. The baby will be kept comfortable. Resuscitated, you notice then he used the little English word, if. Resuscitated if. That's what the parents want. Of course, the implication being, well, if they don't want that, then don't resuscitate the baby. But then the baby is resuscitated, and then there's a discussion? A discussion about what, Governor? About what? Oh, because, these legislators are men. What a ridiculous thing that he said there, too. Oh, but, most of these legislators are men. Oh, so in other words, men aren't supposed to protect babies? Is that what you're saying? You don't belong in public office. You're a disgrace. And everybody who agrees with you, in Virginia and in the other 49 states. An absolute disgrace when someone in public office takes these positions and then comes back to you, the voters, and says, oh, but vote for me again. I'm going to leave it there, brothers and sisters, and I'm going to ask you, if you're in Virginia, you know people in Virginia, today is the last day for voter registration. So let's get more pro-life people registered to vote today in Virginia. And then on November 5th, get these baby killers out of office. I hope you have a great day. Now, one more thing before I let you go, I'll give you a blessing. Today is the Pro-Life Silent Day, the Pro-Life Day of Silent Solidarity. Now, this is a project of our youth outreach, headed up by Brian Kemper, whom you've seen often on these programs. Brian heads up our youth outreach. It's called Stand True. And on this Tuesday of October every year, the Silent Day of Solidarity is held, where students and also some adults, but started mainly as a student-led project, will spend the day in silence. Some of them will put tape over their mouths, and they won't say anything today. And that's an expression of being in union with the babies in the womb who cannot say anything, who cannot speak up for themselves. And by their silence, they are in solidarity with those children. And it gets the attention of people around them. Oh, how come you have that tape over your mouth? How come you're not talking today? And then they're able to hand them a pamphlet that explains, I am being silent today because my brothers and sisters in the womb, notice they're not strangers, they're not just somebody else's child, somebody else's problem, somebody else's choice. They're our brothers and sisters. Again, solidarity. And we're saying we're in solidarity with these babies. We want people to pay attention to them, to pay attention to their right to life, and to protect them. Beautiful things. Lives have been saved, minds have been changed. Go to silentday.org. That's the website, silentday.org. And stand with those young people today. And again, adults are taking part in it too. A day of silence. You know, if we spent a moment of silence for every baby that's been aborted, you know it would take over a century? Amazing. Unbelievable. Let's make a change. Let's stand in solidarity with these babies by our silence, by our words, by our prayers, by our actions, and by our votes. God bless you, friends. And now may the Lord send you his blessing, protect you, answer all your prayers, and make you strong witnesses for the unborn. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father Frank Pavone here of Priests for Life. Thank you. God bless you. We'll talk to you soon.
Follow him, Father Frank Pavone, Fr. Frank Pavone, on Twitter. He is the National Director of Priests for Life. Please go to priestsforlife.org.